Welcome to the latest Risky Business podcast from Howden.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Howden Risky Business podcast. We're trying something a little bit different today actually, so excited to see what happens. We're being recorded in the room, so the problem is we've both got faces for radio, Tim, so I don't know how much of a draw that'll be.
That was my joke, Jack. You're taking that now.
No, sorry. Actually getting quickly. Again, we're joined by a guest this week. So you've got me, Jack, and we're joined by Tim, co-host. And we've brought in Scott English from Elite Business. And we recently met Scott at Elite Business Live, which is a function that both Tim and I attended. We had a brilliant time there. So I usually get the guests to introduce themselves, Scott. So would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So as you know, my name's Scott English. I'm the founder and global director of our events management and digital publishing and awards company called CEMG. We're very much in the entrepreneurial space, so we provide content around helping and supporting small businesses that are looking to grow and scale up. And we have a variety of different events and awards, and the one you mentioned, Elite Business Live, that's actually, we're now entering our 12th year running that national conference in central London.
Brilliant.
No, it's a really insightful event, and you had some great speakers. And what I liked about it was, even though I work in insurance, when I sat there and listened to the people speak, I could take stuff from what they said, if you see what I mean. So like different people that spoke different things, you could take that, and it was really sort of covers a wide basis of what they were talking about, which I think was really enjoyable.
Great.
That was brilliant. So we've had some questions come in, and the idea is we're going to ask some questions of you, and you can ask some questions back of us about insurance. Yeah. So the first one, which I think is a really sort of quite a hot topic, which is every business, even our business, is becoming increasingly aware of impact of an environment and a more sustainable business. Now, what sort of things are you hearing from entrepreneurs about the environment and how they're going to make their business sustainable for a long term?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. In fact, with our event, we've been running it for a very long time now. We've now adapted it to actually have an entire section around sustainability, because sustainability used to be seen as an add-on that businesses that are in a better financial position or growing were able to take on sustainability, but it's changed. It's no longer a bolt-on. It's very important that all small businesses or medium-sized enterprises, they actually take it into consideration and they start developing it within their business, or even so much that if they haven't got the funds to have a huge report made up about sustainability, more that they're actually acknowledging it and they're actually doing things to start moving into that position. So it's hugely important now for many business owners.
So what if you embed it early? It becomes the done thing, doesn't it? If you see what I mean. So if you don't wrap your product in plastic and you wrap it in another, that becomes the thing you do, rather than try and imagine like if Coca-Cola is a brand that uses a lot of plastic. You know, if they figure out another way of doing that early days, it would have been a completely different story for them, wouldn't it? And now they've got to try and almost retrofit that back into their business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's one small area in terms of like your product packaging, for example, in terms of like being seen as a sustainable company. But I think it gets a little bit more deeper than that now, because there's so much responsibility out there. A lot of the contracts that you win and everything surrounding that could be based on or deemed on whether you're actually attempting to become more sustainable or you are. So there's a lot of you'll lose bidding, for example, with the government and other large enterprises about winning the contract if you're not seen to be sustainable, which is really interesting. So even if you're not, because like you mentioned about product packaging, for example, like there's certain more environmental friendly packaging, but it costs a lot more to purchase or to export in, which is difficult for a small business owner, isn't it? Because what do? Do you win more contracts because you're seen to be more sustainable, but you've got to afford to run your business? Or, what do? It's really difficult.
Yeah, you're right. I think I saw an interesting post from yourself, Jack, on LinkedIn about the Tony's chocolate about how that's hard to share and more expensive. And the story is that it's hard to share because it represents sort of the cocoa industry and about how wealth isn't shared fairly. And this is a really interesting dynamic. But I think the key thing is understanding people to go, I want to pay more for that sustainable product as opposed to just buying it cheap. Maybe you have to buy it twice, but it's getting that balance between the two.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's part of brand and identity, I suppose. I find it really interesting to go and do some research on this, and it's something that I did quite a lot at university. And about consumers making decisions and different things, and it like you say, it happens on business to business sales as well as business to consumer sales, which is a really interesting point. And I think it's sort of become a little bit of a buzzword, but I think more people now are taking it on as a consumer of a product, or if they're a business consumer of a product. And it happens at different things, like obviously in the event space. How did you get here? And one of the things that came up for me this morning, so I don't know if anyone uses running apps like Strava and things like that. It's I think it's World Environment Day today, something like that. And I've got the Trainline app on my phone. It's like, congratulations, you've used the train on World Environment Day. Now, the train posed its own problems, to be honest with you, this morning. But yeah, it's sort of coming into the fore, and more people are making decisions based upon their environmental impact and choosing brands and different things in order to make sure their own lives are more sustainable. And we've all got about 10 different bins now, I think. So you've got to go and put your tins and your plastics in one and all sorts of stuff.
My children can't still tell the difference between plastic and cardboard. They still it's just go in that bin, I do.
So I know one of the things that we were quite interested in seeing was actually people are paying a lot of attention to this, and how can they see some value come back out of the fact they're becoming environmentally conscious businesses. So loads and loads of different entrepreneurs there, and doing really great things for the environment. And obviously there's a consciousness around this now. And one of the questions that came back in, Scott, was around, okay, how does sustainability affect the insurance side of things? Do I see benefits coming back from the insurers? And I suppose it's such a wide question. It's such a wide topic, and we've seen quite a lot in terms of I don't know if you've seen much on the electric cars. So all the electric car side of things, I think it's brilliant, and we have our own scheme within Howden as well to sort of be environmentally proactive. And I actually think it's quite a challenge for insurers on the electric car space, bringing parts in and things like that. And they usually have different tyres because the weights that are on the cars, for example. Means that if a car's off the road, it's off the road longer than your typical like combustion engine or diesel engine, petrol engine, whatever. So on that side, I think it's quite a challenge for the insurers, and we play a big part in making sure that we come up with solutions at Howden to go back to the insurers and say, how can we make this better for people who are doing electrical fleets and using electric cars? But on the other side of things, I think that with businesses that are environmentally conscious tend to have much, much better proactive policies. Mm-hmm. And policy is something that insurers absolutely love to see. Yeah. So when we're talking about like health and safety, or who is doing their procurement, they're looking for sustainable providers. That means that business is taking a proactive approach in ensuring that it's using great suppliers, and they know their supply chain really well. Usually that comes with the opportunity for these businesses to go back if there's a problem with a product. So for insurance, product recall, for example, they stand a much better chance of recouping their costs. So the insured, or the purchaser of the insurance will face much lower barriers. They'll have much better premiums, and they'll have much better terms, which is really great. And I think sustainability and putting that to the broker, I'd tell your broker that message. So regardless if you're using Howden or someone else, make sure you talk to them about all of the policies that your business has got. That's brilliant. Because for me and Tim, it's our job to go and tell the insurers why they should insure a business. If they're doing things to do with sustainability, their governance in their procurement process, that's all going to tell a really colourful story to the insurer to make sure that you get a great policy for a great price.
Yeah, maybe we just touch on, because also you have the Elite 100, don't you? Elite Business 100. And I think there's a sort of certain criteria that you go through to become one of those.
Absolutely.
And I think if you want to touch a bit on that, because I think that can help us because what we're talking about here is when insurers look at risk, they look at it in two ways. They look at what's physical hazard, i.e., is your house made of bricks, straws, or sticks, or are you a moral hazard, as in what you choose to do with that house? So, for example, you can live in a house of straw, but if you choose to not heat it with a fire, that's a poor physical hazard, but a strong moral hazard. You see what I mean? Yeah. So, how does business become a sort of top 100 for elite business?
Well, there's a number. It's really interesting you say that, and that's a really good analogy. So, in terms of there's a number of things that small businesses can do. Well, to start with, just a brief about the EB 100. So, it is the UK's definitive ranking of the top 100 SME businesses in the UK. There's some very brief criteria in there, but for example, it has to be an independent business, 2 to 249 employees, turnover 100k to 50 million. And we don't take on board like any hedge fund type companies, finance, franchises, anything like that. So it's a real unique competition. To get in there, we have hundreds and hundreds of entries each year from a complete plethora of various businesses. But there's certain criteria that you have to meet, that you get judged on, that you get scored on. And interestingly enough, sustainability is one of them metrics that we measure, that we score on, because it's so important for small business owners that they're following that. And I guess this was a question I was going to ask you, but a lot of the applications now we receive are based around, I'm sure you've heard this term, becoming B Corp. Yeah. So for an SME to become B Corp. And I think chatting to one of our speakers at Elite Business Live, Paul Hargreaves, who's the founder of Cotswold Fair, and I had a good conversation with him because I was talking about coming in to talk to you guys. But he even told me that 38% of businesses now, all businesses in the country, have visibility around becoming B Corp, which I think is really, really important, because that can help their business incredibly by being a B Corp business and prove that they are doing things that are going to help create a more sustainable future for the next generation. And back to the criteria, that's one of the things we score on that's really deadly important, is about sustainability. So my question to you was going to be, like, do insurers look at things like being a B Corp SME? Do they take that on board when it comes to insurance?
Yeah, I would say there's another question we often get is dash cams. If I put dash cams in, do I get money off? And I always say it's a much longer process. So there may be some discounting we can leverage from being a B Corp or some better terms, but ultimately it's what you're presenting as a whole is going to come back better for you, if you see what I mean. So if you put that forward, it shows you've got a strong morality to your business. So, you think you care about the environment, that probably means you're going to care about your staff, you're going to upkeep your property, etc., etc. And I think there's not a become a B Corp, get 10% off your insurance. It's not that direct line yet, okay. But what it will do is it will definitely allow us to, but the most important thing is tell us. When you're engaged with your insurance person, tell us all your good stuff. Quite often we'll focus on, oh yeah, I'm really struggling with my alarm, or I'm really struggling with it. Well, actually, we'll say, oh, I'm a B Corp, or I'm a Elite Business 100. I've got all this stuff going on, because it allows us to sell better to us.
And it's interesting because, like you say, that there's that direct line. But if one of the questions we get asked quite frequently is around employee ownership. So Howden's an employee-owned business, very proudly so, and the insurance, the actuaries are going to look at large data sets across a massive swathe of different sorts of businesses and types of businesses. And in one part you might have B Corp, in another you might have employee owned, you might have general small partnerships, SME, and loads of different things. And within that there's lots of different rating factors that will apply against your premium. So what are you doing? Have you got an office that's a marketing agency, or are you a welding shop? That's doing lots of different stuff to do with heat works and things, fabrication, big, RSJs that go into buildings or something, quite high risk. And I would say one of the interesting things to look at would be, if you're a B Corp, what does your risk profile look like compared to non-B Corp equivalent businesses? Yeah. And my gut feeling, and I don't know this because I haven't seen the data, would be B Corp is probably similar to employee-owned businesses in that the employees really care. You're working for that business for a reason, which would make me think you're a better risk than the average business that's non-B Corp. So I suppose the long and short answer is yes, it will impact it, provided that the B Corps fit into that profile where they care about their risk.
Yeah. As well as, we mentioned, we always go back full circle on this, sort of try to tie a bit of a ribbon on it. It will become the standard expected thing. So when somebody first insured a car, they wouldn't have asked if it's got seatbelts in it. And at some point they would have done, when seatbelts become the thing that reduces the personal injury from accidents, etc. So what I'm getting at is, B Corp is probably not a direct question at the moment, but it could well become the thing that it's assumed it's there. I'm sure when we've all bought car insurance, we've not yet ticked a box that says, yes, I've got seatbelts. You see what I mean? It's kind of like it, but at some point it'll be, are you B Corp? What do you do about sustainability? What do you do about the environment? And then moving it on to there. So yeah. Yeah.
It'd be interesting when you're pointing at cars as well, when it comes up in the insurance question is it self-driving?
Yeah.
Will they save more insurance on the fact that it's a self-driving vehicle rather than an actual driving? Because you think how everything's going overseas, self-driving vehicles, like soon their premiums will come down because of it.
Exactly, you think that, and we talk a lot on our cyber podcasts about it's always the human. It's, computers, machines will do what they're asked to do day in, day out, and it will just, it will send the email. If I meant to send an email to Jack and I send it to you, and I put your name in, it will send it to you because that's what it says it's got to do. And you're right. I think actually that could change it massively because machines won't drink drive. Machines won't. No, they won't. They won't drive tired. They won't try to drive to Glasgow back in the day. They'll do what they should do. So moving to look at the globe. I remember seeing Richard Harpin speaking, and he was talking about sort of when he launched HomeServe into the America and other stuff. So what are businesses thinking about when they're looking to expand to overseas territories or expand in wind? Is that something they've a lot of thinking about, and what stage they jump off, etc.?
So what are they thinking? Are you talking about businesses that are thinking about going global, or are you talking about businesses that actually they're on that journey, they're moving forward with it,
it's a bit of both. I think it's more a case of thinking about it to start with, and obviously then when they're actually there.
Okay, yeah. So there's so we wouldn't have enough time on this podcast to cover it all about if you're thinking about going global or growing internationally. There is so much in terms of consideration that small businesses, like we were referring about Elite Business Live, we actually had 2 big sessions which was all about going global. From a mindset perspective as an individual, about thinking that you've got the capacity to do it, and also about some of the more some of the actual things around going global that are really important. So these are things like market research and analysis, strategic planning, the legal and regularity around going overseas and international, the cultural adaptation to your product. And I'm really strongly passionate about this. And the reason why is because we're actually, as though it's quite funny because there's an event management company and digital publisher, because we're in media, people don't see us as a business. They see us as we're just there. We're Elite Business. But in fact, as the founder and director of the business, I'm constantly finding ways to improve and grow the business. And one of the ways that we were looking to do it is with one of our divisions. We've got another awards called the EF100, the HSBC EF100, in fact. And because of the success of it, we've been running for 8 years now, we're now taking it international because we've created such an amazing community. It's got a huge following. It's been really successful. And we want to now move international ourselves. So interestingly enough, when I was putting on Elite Business Live, I'm listening to Richard, I'm listening to Alison Stewart Allen, I'm listening to all these great people, and I'm actually absorbing all this information about how I'm going to take this all international. And the things that I've found, and we're expanding the EF100 into Canada. And the things that I've found out that you don't realise is just incredible. And I've been over there quite a few times now to research and find out about the marketplace and everything that I've just mentioned before. But I'll tell you just a couple of things that's really interesting. But one of them, for example, in the UK, you kind of expect the UK to have all the same legislation. Yeah. So in Northern Ireland and the whole of England, Scotland, you expect it all to have the same legislation because that's just what you're used to and that's how it is. But overseas, there's a number of countries where each province, for example, like each region, so this would be like East Anglia, has its own laws. You think, wow, that's incredible. I'd have never have known that. I'd have never have thought that too. And like there's things like the legislation that they have that's completely different to another province. And I've only just recently learnt this. And also things like taxation. There's different, like they call it HST out in Canada, but they've got a different percentage that you get charged and you have to pay on different regions. Whereas you'd never have thought that or never expect that. You just think it's one country, this is how it is, this is their law, this is their tax, and it's amazing the things that you find out. And it's interesting when we were looking at branding and the culture and how our product would fit in. And I'll bring back to, because I spoke to her about this, but Alison Stewart Allen, who was our keynote speaker at Elite Business Live, and she was talking about slogans and branding and how important it is to make sure you know your culture, you know your slogan, you know what everything means overseas. And I'll just give one example that she said she'd be happy for me to use. But for example, like KFC, when they're expanding into Beijing, you know their strapline, finger licking good. And they didn't really look into it and they expanded into Beijing. And in Beijing, that actually means like eating your fingers or something along them lines, or sucking your fingers or something like that. But it's not the best strapline to go to the international market.
The same thing with their cars. So when electric windows started being a thing, they put electric windows in the front because that's where the perception, that's where mum and dad are. That's where the grown-ups sit in a vehicle. And then they say, oh, let's just pick this car up and sell it, export it to India. So it goes, why is it not selling in India? Because everyone in India at that time had a chauffeur. So why would the chauffeur have electric windows? And if I want to wind my window down, I've got to crank it down. You know, it's just It's exactly that, isn't
Wow,
it? Know your industry sector you're going into.
It's worth saying actually. The sessions were recorded at Elite Business Live, weren't they? So, and I'd thoroughly recommend to our audience and listeners to go and have a look at those sessions, especially if you're looking at going international. Because I know we sat there and we were absolutely amazed at some of the information that you got. And Alison's session was incredible, like really, really insightful into that sort of thing. And one of the things a mistake that I actually make quite a lot of the time is you think about going international and globalization and all of this sort of stuff, and I think, you're going to go everywhere. It's still complicated just to go to one of the regions. So you're talking about Canada there. There's so many different hurdles that you've got to jump over in terms of legislation, and we come across this frequently in terms of the insurance side of it as well. State by state is different in America, for example. And, I can imagine that they have people who are specialists in state by state to place the broker in there.
Yeah. I think that's again, using Richard's sort of comments he said about it was going local, and doing the research, getting yourself either going over there or engaging with someone that's local to be able to understand what they want. I think that's so important when it comes to understand the sector. So no, it's exciting. So when's is there a go live date, or are you still?
Yeah, we're looking to get live around mid-May. We're looking to go live there, but we've had to do. This is the point why Elite Business Live is so great, because we've had to do an incredible amount of research to know exactly what we have to adapt, change in order to fit with that community. So that's why. Even our own talks at Elite Business Live, I'm sitting there picking up things and learning and implementing it myself into my business, which is really great.
No, that's good. Good to see.
So I wonder, actually, I keep trying to sort of bring this back into the insurance game. It's sort of my job as the host. And I wonder whether we could talk about that a little bit more, Tim, in terms of one of the big questions that came out of Elite Business Live around this globalization piece was, okay, what about the insurance implication of going global? What does that look like and how does it work?
I think there's a couple of points to perhaps, when people think of going global, they kind of, let's use the trotter's van from home, sort of like London, Paris, Peckham types. They often think going global is being there on the ground. But actually, to me, just going global means selling your product there, if you know what I mean. So if you're selling, I don't know, a non-plastic toothbrush, like a bamboo toothbrush, and you're selling it in the UK, we can easily just distribute that out into another country, can't you, by getting a distributor to sell it. And I think, but engaging with your insurance broker, so if you're going to sell something to the States, that can carry a much higher rate than what's applied to your turnover for the US compared to what it would do for the UK, because it's a far more litigious society. So I had a client, and I went and saw him years ago, and I said to him, how are you getting on? His name was called Peter, lovely gentleman, made medical products. He said, oh yeah, we're okay. He said, my business has gone backwards by about 10%, but my US sales are booming, and all my internal alarm bells start going off. Because I said to him, well, actually, you're going to send us back. He said, the insurance market at that time was quite flat. He said, so my insurance price will come down. I went, no, it won't. I said, it's going to probably double, because you're sending stuff so much more into the US. You see what I mean? You're doing more of your higher risk activity. So I think it's important that you just sort of understand where your cost basis could change. You see what I mean? And insurance could be one of those. You can look at, okay, it's going to cost me more money to send it across. It's going to cost me more money to store it. But I think that's important to look into. And I think then the next stage is when you start actually having local subsidiaries in those territories. And that's we're going back to Richard's comments of, that's when we know a bit. I'm aware of taxation is different in different states. I'm aware in Spain, for example, there's some different policies that you can buy, or it's what we call local pools or local state-sponsored schemes, which is government-backed insurance. But I don't know them all, and I could walk in there and we could say to somebody say, oh, I'm going to expand to the US, and go, okay, great. Then somebody else said, I'm going to expand into Australia, and having access to people in those territories that you can rely on. So we're part of various network groups that we have sort of service standards agreed with us all, and they'll come back to you the same day, or they'll come on a call, and you become, ironically, it's called one Howden. You become one, and in that way, that's what's so important, to be able to understand what the people are doing. And so there's other ways about just giving people the options, isn't it, Jack? That's what I always do. I wrote an article about admitted and non-admitted coverages, about whether you want to use your UK policy to cover you overseas, which if you're a UK business selling into America, you can do that. But if you then set up a subsidiary in America, you have to have some local, what's called admitted covers, i.e. policies issued in the States for your US-led business. But I think the biggest thing is just engage with us early, so we can help guide you through that and you don't have any bumps in the road.
Yeah, and I suppose you see quite a lot of this, Scott, and I think it's really interesting to think about the access to information, and I think a lot of people probably immediately turn to something like Google and try to digest a lot of the information themselves. And one of the things that I'd definitely go and say to people who are looking to go international is give your broker a call. They'll probably know a bit, and they'll probably be able to advise you about where to go for information. And in the same way, and I suppose you could probably expand on this for me a little bit, is Elite Business Live, from my experience, get armed me with so much information, not only about going and doing this stuff, but where can I find out more? And I think the value of something like a network that you've built is invaluable to someone who's, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm looking to expand my business. And some of the people there were in all sorts of different functions. They did lots of different jobs. You've got manufacturers, you've got people who do stuff on the computers that I can't even begin to understand, which is incredible, really. You've got access to that network.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the thing about Elite Business Live, where it's quite unique, is that there's not many events where once you've watched the content, you can then actually, in the designated times, can go and approach the speaker or the panel and have a conversation with them. And also afterwards as well, they're more than happy for you to reach out, and they're happy to answer questions, however you do that, via socials or contact them directly. That's the great thing about it, is being able to have that access to people that have got the experience and skills and have obviously been through the kind of pain points that you're going to have to get through. They've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and they're more than happy, because what they're doing now is giving them purpose by giving back their experiences to people, which is lovely. And I think that's great. And we're very selective about who talks at Elite Business Live, because we want to make sure that we have them type of individuals that are willing to come along. But there's loads of different things you can do, particularly around going international. I mean, we work very closely with the Department of Business of Trade. They've got a lot of ambassadors, and they've got a lot of global and export champions that you can reach out to, and there's lots of resource through them. They're a very close partner with us that we work with in order to support businesses that are looking to go overseas. We have our online content platform, Elite Business. We're regularly publishing content every single day, and we've got a global section which talks about all the things that we've spoke about in this podcast, really, about things that people need to think about if they do want to go overseas as well. But the big thing is as well is that you tend to find that people are quite willing to talk to you, and there's loads of social tools that are out there that if you want to reach out to someone in your specific sector, like you mentioned about manufacturing and other sectors, there's always someone there that is willing to help. And if you reach out to someone and just ask them, they're probably going to come back to you and support you. And if you are watching this and you're wondering about who you could talk to that could help you, reach out to me, reach out to our team, and we'll divert you to someone that can help with any questions that you've got.
Yeah, that's really what you want, isn't it? I think I always think the longer you've been in business, it's my 20th year of doing insurance broking, but the people that you've met and experiences you've had allows you to help people, and I think that's what you want. You got approached by someone saying, "Oh, I'm thinking of expanding into New Zealand." You could pick up the phone to me and say, "Oh, Tim, this person's thinking of New Zealand." We could then plug them into someone else, and it all can move. And then our colleagues in New Zealand could be having exactly the same thing in Auckland, and it flows back the other way. And I think and that's probably one of the USPs from insurance brokers. A lot of the advice is free. Yeah. You actually pay something when you go ahead. And actually, if it's not something we can do because it's our colleagues in Canada, for example, then they get paid, not us. But actually, you get the right outcome to the customer. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. We had another question just around cyber threats in business. And I suppose we cover this quite a lot from an insurance perspective, don't we, Tim? And we did a recent one, which is worth having a listen to with Catherine Aleppo. And there were some questions around cyber threats in business, and I'm interested to hear from your perspective, really. What do you think people are afraid of happening, and do you think that people are prepared, or businesses and entrepreneurs in particular are prepared for cyber threats? My personal opinion is I don't think there's enough out there to educate SMEs about cyber security threats and also how they can be approached. I think that there's a big difference in terms of what companies are able to get the cover to that are concerned with cyber security threats, and also that they've got the budget available to be able to have big systems in place or software that can protect them. Because for an average SME, cyber security threats is not the number one listed item on their priority list to do for the week. It's probably very, very, very far down. And that is purely because of the education and them not realising
what that they should actually consider and think about. And I think that is a real important point, and where our insurers can come in and provide that education to make them risk aware and what that actually means, because we're in some amazing development times with AI and the changes that are coming in through that. But we're also possibly in some of the most scariest times for small businesses in terms of education and what that means. Yeah. And interesting enough, I had a chat with one of our speakers. He's one of our judges, one of our contributors. We work very closely with ex-Dragons Den, Piers Linney, who formed Implement AI, which is all about supporting small and growing businesses through that journey. And I had a good chat with him about our conversation today as well. And interestingly enough, hyper-personalized and realistic attacks are happening through AI. And there's some really interesting things that were not interesting, but some dangerous things that can happen through AI when it comes to cybersecurity. Like, for example, in 2020, like a Chinese bank worker actually used AI and tricked into sending 35 million to cyber criminals who claimed a bank executive's voice. Yeah. So he cloned the voice, and then it turned it. Yeah. So there's real risks and real threats out there that people need to think about. And also through AI as well, is deep fakes. You know, that's scary to think that goes on, and that somebody can get in contact with you. It's a deep fake, and you end up giving them your information because you can't tell if it's AI or not. You know, so it's great times that we're in terms of like the evolution of tech and everything where we are to help businesses. It's also a very scary time. And I think it really does play a part on making sure that we've got cover for these things to happen to us. I mean, from your standpoint, from an insurance provider, I mean, you know, the education piece and the support that you can offer small businesses. I mean, how are you guys doing that?
But this is part of the reason, and what we're doing today with the podcast. We're trying to get the message out there a different way. You know, I went around some friends of mine the weekend, and they're thinking about setting up a little venture for themselves, and what they think they need insurance wise, they do need. But there's also half a dozen other things they need to think about. And I think that the misconception is, you can see how devastating a fire is. Everyone's seen it. Everyone's walked past someone's house and there's been a fire and they've gone, oh my God, it's awful. They've seen a factory burn out. You hear of the huge cyber attacks that happen, that hit the headlines. But what you don't happen is you don't hear Weymouth golf products, you know, being taken offline, because it's not newsworthy. You know, it's not going to, but it could destroy my business. And I think if you realise that the cyber attack space is now using AI so much, and we had Catherine, we talked about, you know, the car door analogy of going down and trying car doors, and we also talked about the two people, one transit van, of how much they could steal within an hour, which we used to use as a property mechanism to work out how much stock you could take. Now you've got AI hitting thousands of car doors a second that could then take millions, and I think that's why it's so important. And if you're a startup business, you're in that sort of seed/early sapling growth, you know. And I think what we want to do as an insurance broker is we want to put that protective wrap around your business, so that when the fox comes to try to eat you or whatever it may be, it gives you a chance to get. Now, imagine when you get the size of a big oak tree, you're okay, but when you're in the early, you know, popping your head above the ground, that's quite scary, man.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? It's interesting because one of the things that I took away from the event recently was the ability to have a flexible mindset and being willing to take on new ideas and different things like that. And I believe that the crowd there are there to learn, and they're probably ears open and minds open to cyber risk, which probably puts them in a really good position because they're willing to take on reports. And, you know, you can get reports from your broker free of charge that explain what your risk looks like. And we've written numerous articles on this sort of thing. And I suppose one of the things to sort of take away, so that there's people listening to this that are going to be willing to learn, that want to hear about different things. Okay, are you using your computer? How fundamental is that to you doing your business? That's growing all the time, all of the time. And I wrote an article recently, and it's just like the last 20 years in cyber. So in 2004, only 60% of people were using the internet, and infrequently at that. Whereas now, 97% of people use the internet every single day in the UK. So that was data provided from the Office of National Statistics, which says to me that it's probable that more than 90% of businesses are reliant every day upon the internet.
Yep.
And there's your risk exposure. Now, historically, when we're talking about fixed mindset, what people are focused on is insuring the desks and the chairs and the tables, the buildings. Of course, it's important to insure a building. A lot of businesses have invested heavily if they own their building and want to make sure that they're protected in the event that something goes down. I think about it in terms of, if you opened up your computer tomorrow and you were faced with a blue screen that said, pay this account 10 Bitcoin, what do you do?
It's scary but true, yeah.
And I suppose it's, first of all, the thing is, have that sort of wake-up call or that presence of mind to think about the risk and exposure to your business if you can't get online. And then the second part is start to investigate ways of mitigating your risk. So risk management, and we have access to loads and loads of different stuff. And perhaps we should probably put on a webinar or something in partnership with some insurers to talk about risk and how you can mitigate your risk, because the next thing people think of is cost. Now, risk management might not actually really cost you anything. So we use, I don't know if people have got this sort of stuff set up, but multi-factor authentication. Most people have it on their works computers now. You can get it for your social media and stuff. So that's really, really important. And then I suppose the next hurdle is the insurance piece, because you're not going to be able to get insurance without doing the risk management.
100%. It's interesting actually how I've sort of increased, or we've increased our LinkedIn presence. And I've had 2 or 3 people try and crack my password. Someone say, I get an email to my another email account saying, are you trying to log in from? I'm like, no, I'm not currently in Hawaii, unfortunately. But and I think it's just interesting, and I'm an insurance person. I'm not really like, so I think it's making sure that you've got that awareness of it, and I think just making sure that also, when you mentioned about Bitcoin bit, Jack, some companies might go, oh, it's a £5 Bitcoin, I'll pay that, Well, that could also land you in hot water, because you then pay the sanctioned entity. And it's funny how, again, going back to big business, can often see, oh, this has been brought in. So think about the Bribery Act that came in a couple of years ago, Jack. That was brought in because the idea of it was, I'm getting 6 deaths of people bribing in big business to get big contracts. The first person that was prosecuted under the Act was somebody taking £50 or very low denomination of money to bin car speeding fines at a local Snaresbrook court. So they were the first person prosecuted. So what I'm trying to say is, linking that to your SME person, if they'll get followed up with just the same way that somebody else would. So yeah, I think it's really important that you just have that awareness and try and protect your business best you can.
I suppose it's an opportunity for you to give us some insight on some stuff. If you wanted to add anything else onto it, Scott, because I'm conscious that we've taken a long time. It's a bit longer than the usual.
It's always happened, Jack. We've got to start booking it for longer. We can't just say half an hour.
There's so much value in it. So, is there anything else that you'd like to add on? Just talk about it.
No, well, what I will say is I think it's great what you're Howden and you're doing with these podcasts, because you're touching on subject matter that people really need to know, and it's from a perspective of being in business. When it comes to insurance, you always seem to think it's a straightforward. What do I have to have? What do I have to have in order for my business to operate and run? But like we've already discussed, like there's clearly a number of other elements that could really support and boost your business if you actually investigated them. So I think it's great that you guys and also how it helps and supports businesses in general. I really think it's great how you're putting these podcasts together to educate individuals on what they can do and what they should think about. So yeah, I think it's been really great.
Appreciate that, Scott. Well, I suppose we should round this off. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for having a listen to us. And thanks, Scott, again for coming in. Brilliant guest as always, and nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so if you can, please do refer the podcast on to someone who might find it useful. There's loads of information in this one, and do check out Elite Business Live and the website and stuff like that. Do you want to give it a plug?
Yes, absolutely. You give me the opportunity, I'm going to plug it. So we've got Elite Business Online, which is for content to help you in your business journey and your success. Elite Business Live will be on the 12th and 13th of March, and then it's free to register if you want to watch it from the comfort of your own home. You can watch it live stream, all of the content, or if you do want to come to the studio, be part of our live studio audience, then you can see the options under register if you go to Elite Business Live. But yeah.
Brilliant. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe on the platform that you have a listen to. So thanks again, Tim.
Thanks, Jack.
And thanks to the listeners. Catch you soon.
If you'd like to find out more about Howden Commercial Insurance, visit howdengroup.com.